The Three Musketeers, Chapter 3. M. de Treville was for the moment in a very bad humor. Nevertheless, he politely greeted the young man, who bowed all the way to the ground, and smiled on receiving his compliments in that Bernese accent, which reminded him at the same time of his youth and of his birthplace. A double memory that makes a man smile at any age, but going towards the antechamber almost at once, and making a sign to D'Artagnan with his hand as if asking his permission to finish with the other before beginning with him. He called out 3 times, raising his voice more each time, so that he ran through all the interminably tones between the imperative and irritated Athos, Porthos, Aramis, the 2 musketeers whose acquaintance we have already made, and who answered the last 2 of these 3 names immediately left the group they were part of and advanced towards the office, the door of which closed behind them the moment they crossed their threshold. Their bearing, through not entirely calm, still aroused at D'Artagnan's admirations by its casualness, which was at once full of dignity and of submission. He saw these men as demigods, and their chief as an Olympian Jupiter, armed with all his thunderbolts. When the 2 musketeers came in, when the door was closed behind them, when the buzzing murmur of the antechamber, to which the summons that had just been made had given fresh nourishment, started up again. But finally, M. de Treville, silent and frowning, had placed the whole length of his office 3 or 4 times, passing each time before Porthos and Aramis, rigid and mute as if on parade. He suddenly stopped in front of them, and looked them up down with an irritated glance, shouted, "Do you know what the king said to me, and that no later than yesterday evening? Do you know, gentlemen?" "No," said the 2 musketeers after a moment of silence. "No, monsieur, we don't know, but I hope you will do us the honor of telling us," Aramis added in his most polite tone and with the most graceful bow. "He told me he could henceforth recruit his musketeers from M. Lee Cardinal's guards, And why would that be?" Porthos asked sharply. "Because he saw very well that his local vintage needed forfeiting with a dose of good wine." The 2 musketeers blushed to the roots of their hair. D'Artagnan did not know what it had to do with him, and wished he was 100 feet underground. Yes, M. de Treville continued, growing animated. "Yes, and his Majesty is right, for on my honor, it's true that the musketeers cut a sad figure at court yesterday playing chess with the king, and the cardinal told us with an air of condolence, which greatly displeased me, that the day before yesterday, those damned musketeers, those daredevils, he stressed those words with an ironic accent that displeased me still more. These true destroyers," he added, looking at me with his tiger cat eyes, "had stayed late at the tavern on Rue Ferou, and that a patrol of his guards had been forced to arrest the troublemakers. Morbleu, you must know something about arresting musketeers. You 2 were on it. Don't deny it. You were recognized, but the cardinal named you. But it's all my fault. Yes, my fault, since it's I who picked my men. Look here, Aramis. Why the devil did you ask me for the tabard when you could have done so well in a cassock? Look there, Porthos. Have you got such a handsome gold baldric, only to hang a straw sword on it? And Athos, I don't see Athos. Where is he?" "Monsieur," Aramis responded sadly, "he is ill, very ill." "Ill? Very ill, you said? And with what illness?" "They're afraid it may be smallpox," Monsieur answered Porthos, who wanted to add a word of his own to the conversation, which would be regrettable in that it would quite certainly spoil his looks. "Smallpox, That's another glorious story you tell me, Porthos. Sick with smallpox at his age, not so, but wounded, no doubt, maybe killed. Ah, if I only know Sangdu, you gentlemen, musketeers, I don't mean to have you hunt in low places like that. Picking quarrels in the streets and playing with swords at the crossroads. I don't want you, finally, to give the laugh to the Cardinal's guards, who are brave men, calm, clever, who never put themselves in danger of being arrested, and besides, would not let themselves arrested. Not them. I'm sure of it. They'd much rather die on the spot than retreat a single step, to run away, to flee. That's fit for the king's musketeers. Porthos and Aramis were trembling with rage. They would gladly have strangled M. de Treville if at the bottom of it all they had not felt it was the great love he bore them, which made him speak to them that way. They stamped the carpet with their feet, bit their lips until they bled, and gripped the hilts of their swords with all their might. Outside, as we have heard said, the others had heard Athos, Porthos, and Aramis summoned, and had guessed by the accent of M. de Treville's voice that he was in perfect wrath. 10 curious heads were pressed against the tapestry and turned pale with fury, for their ears, glued to the door, did not miss a single syllable of what was said, while their lips repeated the captain's insulting words, bit by bit, to the whole population of the antechamber. In an instant, from office door to street door, the entire hotel was in turmoil. So the king's musketeer got arrested by M. the Cardinal's guards. M. de Treville went on, inwardly as furious as his soldiers, but halting at each words, and plunging them one by one, so to speak, like so many thrusts of a stiletto into the breast of his listeners. So 6 of his eminence guards arrest 6 of his Majesty's musketeers. Morbleu, I've made my choice. I'm going straight to the lover. I shall turn in my resignation and as captain of the king's musketeers, and ask for a lieutenancy in the cardinal's guards. And if he refuses me, Morbleu, I'll become an ape. At these words, the murmur outside became an explosion everywhere. One heard nothing but oaths and blasphemies. The Morbleus, the Sanctus, and 40 pockmarked devils crisscrossed in the air. D'Artagnan looked for the tapestry to hide behind, and felt an immense desire to crawl under the table. Well then, Captain, said Porthos beside himself, the truth is that we were 6 against 6, but we were set upon the treachery, and before we had time to draw our swords, 2 of us had fallen dead, and Athos, grievously wounded, was hardly worth more. For you know Athos well, Captain. He tried to get up twice, but he fell back twice, but all the same he didn't surrender. No, we were dragged off by force. On the way we escaped. As for Athos, they thought he was dead, and they left him quite calmly on the battlefield, thinking he wouldn't worth carrying off. That's the story. The devil take it, Captain. You can win every battle. The great Pompey lost at Pharsalia and King Francois. I've heard tell. I was as good as a man as any, yet he lost at Pavia, and I have the honor of assuring you that I killed one of them with this own sword, said Aramis, for mine was broken at the first parry. Killed or stabbed, monsieur, whichever you please. I didn't know that. And de Treville picked up in a slightly softened tone. Le Cardinal was exaggerating, as I see. But for pity's sake, monsieur, continued Aramis, who, seeing his captain calm down, dared to venture in entreaty, for pity's sake, monsieur, don't say that Athos himself is wounded. He will be in despair if it come to ear of the king, and as the wound is most grave, seeing Seeing that after passing through the shoulder, it penetrated chest, it is to be feared. At that time, instant, the portrait was raised, and a noble, handsome, but dreadfully pale head appeared under the fringe. Athos, cried the two musketeers. Athos, repeated M. de Treville himself. You sent for me, monsieur, Athos said to M. de Treville in a weakened but perfectly calm tone. You sent for me, as our comrades have told me, and I hasten to respond to your orders. Well, monsieur, what do you want from me? And at those words, the musketeers, irreproachably dressed, tightly belted, as was his custom, entered the office with a firm stride, and de Treville, moved to the bottom of his heart by this show of courage, rushed to him. I was just telling these gentlemen, he added, that I forbid my musketeers to risk their lives unnecessarily, for brave men are very dear to the king, and the king knows that his musketeers are the bravest men on the earth. Your hand, Athos. And without waiting for the newcomer to respond to the show of affection himself, M. de Treville seized his right hand and pressed it against all his might, not noticing that Athos, for all his self-mastery, let escape a wince of pain and grew paler still, which one would have thought impossible. The door had been left ajar. Such was the sensation made by the arrival of Athos, whose wound, despite the well-kept secret, was known to everyone. A hubbub of satisfaction greeted the captain's last words, and two or three heads carried away by the enthusiasm peered through the opening in the tapestry. And de Treville was no doubt on the point of sharply reprimanding this infraction of the rules of etiquette, when he suddenly felt Athos' hand clench in his own, and turning his eyes to him, saw that he was about to faint. Athos, who had summoned all his force to struggle against the pain, who was finally defeated by it, and fell to the floor like a dead man. A surgeon, cried M. de Treville. Mine, the king's, the best, a surgeon, sang Dieu, or my brave Athos would depart this life. At M. de Treville's cries, everyone rushed into his office, for he never thought of closing the door on anyone, each of them coming to the wounded man's aid. But all this concern would have been useless if the doctor sent or bad not been found. Right in the hotel itself, he broke through the crowd, approaching the still unconscious Athos, and as all this noise and movement hampered him greatly, demanded first and most urgently that the musketeers be carried to a neighboring room, and de Treville opened the door at once and showed the way to Porthos and Aramis, who carried their comrade in their arms. Behind this group came the surgeon, and behind the surgeon the closed. Then M. de Treville's office, ordinary, so respected a place, momentarily became a subsidiary to the antechamber. Everyone held forth the acclaimed spoke out, cursing, swearing, sending the cardinal and his guards to all the devils. A moment later, Porthos and Aramis reappeared. The surgeon and de Treville alone had stayed by the wounded man. Finally, de Treville reappeared in his turn. The wounded man had recovered consciousness. The surgeon declared that there was nothing in the musketeer's condition that would worry his friends. His weakness had been caused purely and simply by loss of blood. M. de Treville gave a sign of the hand when they all withdrew, except for D'Artagnan, who had by no means forgetting that he had an audience, and who, with the Gascon's tenacity, and stayed there he was. When everyone was gone and the doors closed again, and de Treville turned and found himself alone with the young man. The event that had just occurred had made him lose the thread of his lost thoughts somewhat. He asked what the obstinate petitioner wanted of him. D'Artagnan then gave his name, and de Treville, recalling at a single stroke of his memories, both present and past, found himself informed of the situation. Forgive me, he said with a smile. Forgive me, my dear compatriot, but I had completely forgotten you. No help for it. A captain is nothing but father of a family burdened with greater responsibility than the ordinary father of a family. Soldiers are big children, but as I insisted, that the orders of the king, and above all of those of the cardinals, be carried out. D'Artagnan could not conceal a smile at that smile, and de Treville decided he was by no means dealing with a fool, and changed the subject, coming straight to the point. I loved your good father very much, he said. What can I do for this son? Be quick, my time is not my own, monsieur, said D'Artagnan. In leaving Tarbes and coming here, my intention was to ask in memory of that friendship which you have not forgotten, for the tabard of a musketeer. But after all I've seen in the last 2 hours, I realize that it will be an enormous favor, and I fear I am not at all worthy of it. It is indeed a favor, young man, answered M. de Treville. But it may not be so far above you as you believe, or as you seem to believe. However, a decision of His Majesty was provided for this case, and I regret to inform you that no one is made a musketeer without the prior proof of several champions of certain brilliant actions, or 2 years of service in some other regiments less favored than ours. D'Artagnan accepted without any reply. He left all the more eager to put on the uniform of a musketeer, since there were such great difficulties in obtaining it. But Treville went on, fixing such a piercing gaze on his compatriot that one would have thought he wanted to read to the bottom of his heart. But for the sake of your father, my old companion, as I have told you, I would like to do something for you, young man. Our cadets from Bern are ordinarily not rich, but I doubt that things have changed greatly since I left the province. So you must have not much to live on the others from the money you brought with you. D'Artagnan drew himself with a proud air, which meant to say that he asked no alms of anyone. Very well, young man, very well, Treville went on. I know those airs. I came to Paris for 4 écus in my pocket, and I have fought with anybody who told me I was in no condition to fight a lover. D'Artagnan drew himself with still more thanks to the sail on his horse. He was beginning his career with the 4 écus more than M. de Treville had begun with. So, as I was saying, you must have a need to hold on what you've got, great as that some may be, but you must also have a need to perfect yourself and exercise a proper. So, gentlemen, I will write a letter today to the director of the Royal Academy, and as of tomorrow he will admit you without any payment. Do not refuse the small kindness. Our best-born and richest gentlemen sometimes seek it without managing to obtain it. You will learn horsemanship, fencing, and dancing. You will make good acquaintance there, and from time to time you will come back to see me and tell me what you've gotten to, and if there's anything I can do for you. D'Artagnan, stranger as he still was to court manners, found a certain coolness in this reception. Alas, monsieur, he said, I see how great a loss of the letter of introduction my father gave me for you is to me today. Indeed, replied M. de Treville, I was surprised that you should have undertaken such a long journey without this obligatory viatism. The only resource known to be us Bernese. I had it, monsieur, and thank God in fine form, cried D'Artagnan. But somebody perfidious robbed me of it, and he recounted the whole scene at Meung, depicting the unknown gentleman in the minutest detail and all of the warmth, a truthfulness that charmed M. de Treville. That's a strange thing, the latter pondering. So you mentioned my name aloud. Yes, monsieur, I doubtlessly committed the impudence, but what do you want? A name like yours was to serve me as a shield on the way. You may judge how often I took cover behind it. Flattery was quite an acceptable thing then, and M. de Treville loved an incense as much as any king or cardinal, so he would not help smiling, but visible satisfaction. But his smile soon vanished, and he returned to the adventure in Tell me, he went on, did this gentleman have a slight scar on his temple? Yes, the kind left by the graze of a bullet. Was he a fine-looking man? Yes. Tall? Yes. Pale skin and brown-haired? Yes, that's right. How is it, monsieur, that you know this man? Ah, if ever I found him again, I will find him. I swear to you, even in the hell. He was waiting for a woman. And Treville went on. At least he left after taking for a moment with the woman he was waiting for. You shouldn't know what the subject of their conversation was. He gave her a box, told her the box contained her instructions, and advised her not to open it until she got to London. The woman was English. He called her Milady. It's he, murmured. It's he. I thought he was still in Brussels. Oh, monsieur, if you don't know this man, cried. If you know this man, cried and D'Artagnan, tell me who he is and where he is, then I won't hold you anything else, and not even your promise to take me to the Musketeers. For all else, I want to avenge myself. Don't even try it, young man, cried Treville. On the contrary, if you see him coming down one side of the street, cross to the other. Don't hurl yourself against such a rock. He'll smash you like a glass. All the same, said D'Artagnan. If I ever find him again. Meanwhile, Treville picked up. Don't go looking for him. If I have one piece of advice to give you. Treville stopped, all at once, striking a sudden suspicion. The great hatred that the young traveler made such display of for this man who, unlikely as it was, had robbed him of his father's letter. Did this hatred not conceal some perfidy? Had this young man not been sent by his eminence? Had he not come to set some trap for him? Was this will be D'Artagnan, not an emissary from the cardinals whom they sought to introduce into his house, and whom they had placed close to him in order to betray his confidence and ruin him afterwards, as had been done 1,000 times before? He looked at D'Artagnan still more fixedly this second time than he had the first. He was not much reassured by the sight of D'Artagnan sparkling with sly wit and affected humility. I know very well he's a Gascon, he thought, but he can just as well be a Gascon for the cardinals as for me. Come, let's test him. My friend, he said to him slowly, I would like ask for the son of my old friend, for I take the story of that lost letter to be true. I say, in order to make up for the coldness you noticed at first in my reception, to reveal to you the secret of our policy. The king and the cardinal are the best of friends. Their appearance disputes are meant only to deceive fools. I do not intend that a compatriot, a fine cavalier, a brave lad, made for advancement, should be the dupe of all this trumpery and run his head into a wall like a ninny in the wake of so many other who have perished from it. Understand well that I am devoted to these two all-powerful masters, and that my serious efforts will never have any other and the service to the other king and to M. the Cardinal, one of the most illustrious geniuses France has ever produced. Now, young man, rule yourself by that, and if you have either from your family or thoughts, relations, or even by instinct, any of those hostile feelings against the cardinal, such as we see break out among these gentlemen, say goodbye to me and let us apart. I will help you in 1,000 circumstances, but without attaching you to my person, I hope that my frankness in any case will make you my friend, for up to the present you are the only young man to whom I have spoken as I am speaking now. Treville said to himself, if the cardinal has sent me this young fox, he will certainly not have failed. He who knows how much I loathe him, to tell his spy that the best way to pay court to me is to tell me the worst muck about him. So despite my protestations, the cunning accomplice is quite certainly going to answer me that he holds his evidence in horror. But it turned out quite differently that Trevel expected. D'Artagnan replied with the greatest simplicity. Monsieur, I have come to Paris with exactly the same intentions. My father instructed me to bear with nothing except from the king and the cardinal and you, whom he held to be the foremost men in France. D'Artagnan added M. de Treville to the two others, as we can see, but he thought the addition would not hurt anything. I thus have the greatest veneration for M. the cardinal, he went on, and the most profound respect for his acts, so much the better for me. Monsieur, if you speak to me as you say with frankness, for then you do me the honor of evaluating this similarity of taste. But if you have left some mistrust, quite naturally, in any case, I will feel all I am hearing by telling the truth. That is too bad, but you will esteem me nonetheless, and I care more about than that. About anything else in the world, and Treville was utterly astonished. So much penetration, so much frankness finally aroused his admiration, but did not entirely remove his doubts. The more superior this young man was to other young people, the more he was to be feared. If he was mistaken, nevertheless, he shook D'Artagnan's hand and raised to him. You are an honest lad, but at the moment I can do no more than what I offered you earlier. My hotel will always be open to you later on, being able to ask for me to any hour and therefore to seize any opportunity you will probably obtain that you wish to obtain. That is to say, monsieur, replied D'Artagnan, that you are waiting until I make myself worthy. Well, don't worry, he added with Gascon familiarity. You won't have to wait long. But he began to bowing his way down, as if the rest was henceforth up to him. But wait a moment, said M. de Treville, stopping him. I promised you a letter to the director of the academy. Are you too proud to accept it, my young gentleman? No, monsieur, said D'Artagnan, and I gave you my word that what happened to the others will not happen to this one. I will keep it so well that it will arrive at his destination. I swear to you, and woe to him who tries to take it from me. M. de Treville smiled at the fanfaronade and left his young compatriot in the embrasure of the window, where they found themselves and where they had talked together, and he sat down on the table and began writing the promised letter of introductions. During this time, D'Artagnan, who had nothing better to do, started beating out a march on the window panes, watching the Musketeers, who went out one after another, and following them until they disappeared around the corner. And de Treville, after writing the letter, sealed it, and getting up, went over to the young man and gave it to him. But at the very moment when D'Artagnan held out his hand to receive it, D'Artagnan was quite astonished to see him give a start, flushed with anger, and go rushing out of the office, shouting, "Ah, sang Dieu, he won't escape me this time." "Who is it?" asked M. de Treville. "He, my thief," asked D'Artagnan. "Ah, the traitor," and he disappeared. "Mad devil," murmured M. de Treville, unless he had a skillful means of slipping away, seeing that his attempt failed.